All right.
Welcome to the quiet little corner of YouTube called Brother Owl's Garden. I'm Brian, and I honor your presence here today, as well as the presence of the wonderful and beloved one and only Kiara Windrider, who is with us for a second time. It's such a great honor. Thank you so much, Kiara. How are you?
Well, thank you, Brian. It's just a wonderful gift to share this time. And the last time was so inspiring and just
Mm,
felt like such a fluid movement.
yeah.
And I think that you said something about relating
Mm.
and then emerging from that, whatever emerges in this moment. And it fits our theme because our theme is the future, but how can you separate the future from this moment, right? So here we are.
Exactly. Exactly. Today, dear viewers, we're going to be discussing the future, probably from multiple angles. And I have a feeling that that Spirit is going to channel a lot through Kiara. Uh, and I'm just going to nod and respond and relate and acknowledge the best I can. This is a topic, Kiara, that I consider to be a deep dive.
Mm.
I definitely consider it to be a deep dive if we're on the same wavelength as far as what we're thinking right now, because everything we do, Kiara operates the same way with his channel, which I encourage you all to subscribe to, by the way, Kiara Windrider. You'll see the link below. And also the way I do mine. I don't have a script. We just say, okay, spirit flow. And you just do your best to be in flow state, and things just come up, and there's no real script. I may occasionally write a bullet point that I want to make sure I don't forget, or maybe a quote I wanted to include. But as far as a script or a plan, never.
Mm.
So this is all
Yeah, yeah,
unrehearsed and coming at
yeah.
you live. So
Well, it's like life. I
yeah.
mean, you last time you spoke about Taoism and the
Mm,
just the flowingness, the watercourse way, and everything is contained within that. And so it's a both and. It's not an either or.
yeah.
So it's both the flow, finding the balance within the opposites, but also going beyond any um, opposites themselves. Because when you come to the original essence, the Taoists talk about the um, the supreme simplicity or the
Yeah.
supreme beginning, the supreme origin. I mean, there's different nuances to this, but at that point, there's no opposites. There's not even a creation.
Right.
There's not even time. There's not
Right.
even space. There's only chaos,
Yeah.
but chaos in a good way. When they talk about chaos, in Western models, chaos is nasty. You don't want to
Uh-huh.
be in chaos. You want to bring everything back to order. But here we are talking about chaos as absolute potentiality. And I think that's a good place to begin with this conversation. It's like, what is the future? Is it something outside of the present? Is it something that's only uh, a place we're going towards? Is it already present
Yeah, I
in
mean,
this moment?
there's different ideologies. There is
Mm,
fatalism, which essentially
yeah.
believes that the script of all that will happen, at least to you in your life, or is already written, and you
Mm.
have to stay on track with that, because it is your, as the Chinese say, 缘分, destiny, your destined
Yeah.
outcome, fate. And I lived in Taiwan many years ago, and I had a real problem with that belief. And I used to discuss it with my Taiwanese friends, and I'd say, I don't think that that's accurate. Now, of
Mhm,
course,
mhm,
everything I say that I believe or that I'm absolutely convinced, I will
mm,
very rarely say I know. I will much more often say I don't know.
mm,
But
mm.
it doesn't seem true to me that fate is prescripted and you are there to check the boxes, and I
Mm.
just don't think so. And I disagree strongly with that belief. But
Yeah.
what's your take on that? for starters?
Well, that's a very, very important question because, that determines how we live our lives.
Sure.
And I think there's no answers. Let's discuss some of these answers. In different traditions, like I'm looking at the Sufi tradition, they talk a lot about maktub, or which means it is written. So in the sense that, yeah, if it is written, what does that mean? Is it predestination? It's already out there, and then you follow this path and don't have a choice or free will? Or is it,
Yeah.
kismet? Kismet is a different, slightly
Mm,
different from maktub.
Edgar
Kismet is
Casey.
where you say it's like it's my destiny,
Yeah.
but the destiny is part of a choice that I am involved in. I'm choosing the path in coherence with the entire universe.
I'm totally willing to buy into the concept that there is a synchronization.
Hmm.
In other words, and like what you mentioned before, you made me think of Bob Marley. They say it's just a part of it. We've
Hmm.
got
Hmm.
to fulfill the book. Well, so the one concept is this is prescripted. You will do this.
Yeah.
No matter
Yeah.
what, that will happen. No matter what you think, feel, or will. I don't buy that. But I
Hmm.
do have an idea. I may have referred to it in another episode where it's like GPS. There
Hmm.
are choices, options, possibilities, potentialities. And
Hmm.
according to what you choose, reprogramming, reconfiguring your route. You've chosen this. Now all these other possibilities line up. What are your
Hmm.
traits,
Hmm.
tendencies, habits, likelihoods, proclivities, whatever? But I think that what we call fate or destiny is just a kind of a projection which can be altered. The outcomes can be altered by the choices we make now. And as a final point to that, I'll also throw in that I do also believe that divinity knows what will be, but I do not believe that the knowing of what will be means it is predetermined.
Yeah. All right. So let's break this down. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Sure.
Um, and I think, okay, let's take both points of view. If I say that everything is predetermined, um, there's no choice, kismat, predestination, destiny. What, and I believe that there's an element of truth to this. As long as we're acting out of our programs, because the
Okay.
programs are inexorable. If you're unconscious, if we are stuck with unconscious patterns, fears, um, well, programs is a good word because
Yep.
like a computer program,
Conditioning.
what goes in, conditioning,
Yeah.
what goes in, what's there is then an out. So cause and effect from that perspective. So the cause is immutable. The effects from that are unchangeable
Yeah.
because we're basically acting as an automaton, a robot.
But
Uh,
still,
at that point,
Kiara,
that's not the end though. So that's to the extent that we are disconnected from our true self, to the extent that we are separate from a sense of true choice. We are acting out of predestination. But I think that's where um, these times are so important because we are learning to transcend the conditioning and the programming of earlier times where people believed and obeyed authority in certain ways, whether it's external or internal. And that's the um, opportunity that we're given in this or any other life to change the programming. Otherwise, what's the point? And then once we learn that we are um, not slaves of our conditioning, then there's infinite choice. Then there's, every possibility we can imagine, and it's all here and now. And it leads to, so many infinite directions. One choice we make in one moment then creates a whole ripple effect extending out across the universes.
Exactly. I only wanted to chime in. I apologize if I interrupted you, but what I wanted to say is that it, like, what we're identifying here is that pre-known or precognizance does not mean predetermination. So if it is known what will happen if this course is pursued, that doesn't mean, even if it's known what will happen if you pursue this course, that doesn't mean it's written in stone. That doesn't mean it's predetermined. And so is it correct, Kiara, to understand future potentialities as completely flexible in each moment? Because of course, each moment is just an imagined string of nows, but there is, as you said, only this moment, and yet all future outcomes can be altered from this moment.
Yeah, I think, well, let's look at it as a travel map.
Okay.
So you're going from point A to B. Say you're going from Los Angeles to Bangkok. There's an infinite variety of paths you can take to get from A to B. So in a sense, you can, what are the two words you use? Predetermination and precognition. So, okay, you know that you're going to Bangkok, but how you get there, that's that choice we're given. So your destiny calls you to Bangkok, but how you get there, which flight you take. Do you take a train? Do you take a bus? Do you just plant your stick on a rock and teleport? These are choices that we're given based on the choice of the moment. So in a sense, that's what, any given lifetime, you may come into this incarnation with a sense of destiny. This is something that my soul wants to accomplish. But how that's accomplished, there might be some variations.
Excellent. And that's exactly what we were referring to when I said I'm willing to buy into there being a synchronicity of the two, core beliefs. I actually researched my name one time, and it said that I was astonished because I really don't give a lot of credence to anything that, is astrological or does predictions. I dismiss that for the most part. And I looked up my name. I don't remember where I found the research on it.
Brian.
And it said people with the name Brian tend to have they have a tendency to be very spiritual and religious, and are often found to pursue roles in life or careers or vocations in life that are connected to religion, spirituality, things like that. And I was really taken aback by that. And on the topic of names, my name has two meanings, and which I have only in later in life did I understand that to be the sacred feminine aspect of my name and the sacred masculine aspect of my name. The sacred, what I call the sacred feminine aspect, is Brian means bright light, bright light. And what I interpret to be the sacred masculine aspect, Brian means noble warrior set on a high place. Now, if there is some semblance of what we're calling destiny, this is just meant to happen, and so it shall. The hows, the exactly wheres and whens are flexible, but this will be. If included in that is your namesake, what you are named, or perhaps you choose your name ahead of time, like they say, you choose your parents. If the name bright light and noble warrior set on a high place which is known to have a tendency to be involved in spirituality and religion, things like that, if they are all aligned, I'm
So,
not going to be a plumber.
yeah, I think that's where there's an element of soul destiny. When I say destiny, I'm talking about a path that's laid out already
Yeah,
before I incarnate.
yeah,
Yes, you're not choose, this path isn't about becoming a plumber, it's about becoming a builder,
yeah.
whatever that means on
Hmm.
different levels.
Right.
Um, so I think it all comes down to vibration. Um, Everything is vibrationally based, everything is very subtle. And so, a name that you choose for yourself, like you say, maybe before you even incarnate, or during an incarnation when you want to change a name, um, that vibration then invites certain experiences and reflections and insights and possibilities and destinies. Um, so, Brian the warrior, Brian the space holder, the light being, these are all aspects of what you're here to create. Now, someone else with that same name might create something different based on similar
Hmm.
vibrational resonance. And I think when we get to different levels of reality, different levels of the mind, different models of experience. So, we're here, most of us are speaking about third dimensional models. We're looking at physical time and space. We're looking at physical realities and substance. But then there's other dimensions where things are very different and parallel. So if I'm choosing something on this level of reality, and it's a true choice that's based on soul perception, then that is going to be mirrored and manifest in this reality.
Mm.
But if there's no clarity here, if it's just, okay, what comes, what goes, doesn't matter, then my life here is going to be equally haphazard. It's not to say that I don't, have a sense of movement and flow. Flow comes from clarity of purpose. When there's clarity of purpose, then there can be a flow that moves towards the fulfillment of that purpose. Until then, it's just, like waves in the wind that don't go anywhere. Um,
Yeah, I
so I think that's
understand that.
also the idea of karma in Hindu teachings. Karma is not something that's fixed, an eye for an eye. I mean, back to Judaic culture also. It's not like you have to pay for what you reap or reap what you sow, but it's more like um, this is the law of the universe. But you change your perception, you change your um, relationship with the universe, and things will change outside of you. That's the resonance. So karma is not about, it's like a teaching about, if you continue to go down this path, this is the outcome you can expect if you
Well,
don't change
karma means
anything.
action, right? Essentially
Yeah.
action, and then what results, like the Buddha said, tracks behind the wagon wheels. Wherever your wheels are rolling, they will leave tracks. The action
Mm,
is the wheels rolling. That's what your choices in life, how you're being, what you're doing. And then
exactly.
the wagon tracks are kind of like, or
Yeah.
another way to think of it is like a boat moving through a very placid lake. And as the boat
Hmm.
moves through and navigates its course, it's leaving a wake
Hmm.
of ripples
Hmm.
behind it, you know. So
Yeah.
I've noticed too, Kiara, that well, let's just use the expression, oh, God is punishing me or God is blessing me. I've come to the realization that okay, yes, there are blessings. We do get blessed. We do get chided and disciplined,
Mm,
in some ways of thinking. But I think that when someone says, "Oh, God is punishing me," you are living out of alignment with
mm,
the harmony of creation and its laws that are in place of how it operates. And then you're interpreting as that as God is punishing me. But
Yeah,
actually, you're just living in misalignment.
yeah.
And also, if that's accurate, then the other end of the pendulum must also be true. Oh, I am being so richly blessed. Well, you're living in harmonious alignment
Mm,
with create.
mm,
You're attuned. Look
mm,
at how blessed I am. Yeah. With
mm,
attunement comes all this blessing. And then when you're out of attunement, out of alignment, oh, everything seems to be against me. I'm being punished.
mm.
Well, you're punishing yourself in a way.
Yeah. So let's take it outside of a purely dualistic perception.
Okay.
So, if I'm talking about God as the punisher, God as the blesser, I am separate from so I'm creating a label, God, that I impose on the universe that's outside of my experience of myself, that then can control my life and
Yeah.
control my destiny. Now, if I step outside of that a little bit and come into alignment and union with the divine, yeah, these words, God is such a strange word because there's so many interpretations and for so many people. But the way I would see it, the divine consciousness, the primordial essence, infinite consciousness, or the supreme origin, as the Taoists would say, there I am part of that. And the personal self that I've created is something that is an outcome, it's a reflection of that gives me substance, that gives me an ability to express in a particular incarnation. It carries a quality of intelligence and awareness and action, Icha Shakti, uh, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, as the Hindus refer to. Um, and this then can be either brought into alignment or not. But the sense of self is the key. Like if I'm identified primarily with the separateness of myself as a human and only as that, and separate from the divine self,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm basically following the path of the universe will. I'm giving the universe power over me to decide my fate.
Yeah.
I'm going to be blessed or punished depending on what I do, what I think. But if I step back a little bit, okay, if all of this is a script and I'm the script writer, what determines, what kind of uh, mm, drama I'm creating? I'm choosing all of that. I'm choosing the actors. I'm choosing the circumstances. I'm choosing the events, act one, two, three. And so where does it all lead me? I have choice. But then I write the script and then I step into the play. I give myself roles. So I'm the hero, I'm the villain, I'm all these different things that happen within the play. And some of them appear to be bad, some of them appear to be good. But if I can become the witness, then I'm stepping back, and then it's no longer something that I have to oppose. It's not something I have to resist. Then I find my flow, my movement in the midst of all this that's aligned with the infinite. And I think that's really what the Tao is about. It's not it's not like wherever I go, okay, that's what it is. It's more like I'm choosing purposefully the alignment towards a certain destiny that comes from unity with the totality. And there's I mean, when I feel into that, um, it cannot be anything but beautiful because that's the nature of divinity. It cannot be anything but highly fulfilling because that's the nature of the soul. It cannot be anything but bright because it's beyond the opposites of dark and light. So I think as we begin to step out of this conditioning of who we are as separate, limited, um, sinful horrible, conditioned creatures, then we start looking at, oh my God, I have such enormous potential and power. I can create so much that I can't even imagine. And then the future becomes magnificent. I mean, the future is an outcome of my current choices. It's like because my choices come from a deep place of soul, it's not just coming from the personal self, it's coming from the unity with the everything that I am. Then it's like there's no end, there's no limits to what is possible. And I think that's what is happening today in terms of our evolution. Humanity is stepping into a phase of creativity and conscious evolution that hasn't been here before so much. And as we recognize that, then our choices come from soul rather than from the mind or rather than from the program
Yeah.
of emotional conditioning.
The meddling intellect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Kiara, just a fun little question. Do you think, okay, you said that humanity is entering a phase in its becomingness and returning to its true intended form. You said that it's not done that before. Do you think it's possible that it hasn't done it in a long time, but it has done it before? In other words, spiral, not just
Mm-hmm.
cyclical, but spiral, as far
Mm-hmm.
as the human being species is concerned, because I'm convinced, as we've mentioned, that there were other great, very spiritually ascended civilizations before this one that we're in now. And I'm just wondering if, perhaps that, every 12,000 years destructive cycle or whatever knocks us back. But do you think
Right.
that it's the first time, or do you think it's the first time in this kalpa or this era of some measure?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. And again, I would say it's both and.
Both end, yeah.
So it's like,
Yes,
yes,
both end.
we have the spiral. It's always a continually ascending movement. And yet there's a repetition. Um, and these cycles, whether you call them, kalpas or yugas or ages, um, they can be measured, and there's very detailed measurements. Like in the Hindu system, they talk about the yugas, the 4 ages. In the Greek tradition, they talk about it as the ages of gold, silver, bronze, and iron.
Right.
In the Hindu tradition, it's the Treta Yuga, the Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. But they follow each other. And as they follow each other, inexorably, we move into expanded states of light and then contracted states of darkness. Just like day follows night, night follows day. It's not necessarily one is better or worse than the other. It's simply what the Hindu mathematicians concluded was that this had to do with the movement of our sun around her sister sun, like a twin sun, as they together make their way around the center of our galaxy.
Yeah.
And there are phases to this. So when our sun is closer to the center, that's an age of light. When
That's
the
the what
twins,
again, please?
an age of light.
Okay.
So when our sun is a bit further from the center of the galaxy, that's an age of darkness. So it's not about morality. It's simply okay. There's gifts in this journey away from the center and gifts in the journey returning to the center. There's an out breath and then there's an in breath. Um, so right now we happen to be in this phase where we're emerging out from Kali Yuga, which was about inertia, density, and separation. And we're moving out into Dwapara Yuga, which is an age of energy, eventually towards Treta Yuga, which is an age of illumination, and then finally into the age of light, where there's no separation anymore. It's like the human self and the divine self, the separateness and the union, there's no opposites left. Everything that's inside is also outside.
Would
And
you
so
call
it's a
it
process.
Advaita? Advaita?
Yeah. So Advaita is the unity, well, it's the recognition that there's not two. Advaita means not two. In the Kali Yuga, we have divided everything up into infinite multiplicities and then separated ourselves in the midst of that. So it's like I'm outside of that, I'm separate from that, and there's judgments involved. This is better than that, or that's better than this. And the contrast is what then allows us to grow. It's not a bad thing. That contrast is necessary. We learn through opposites. And that's the nature of the Kali Yuga. We are learning through contrast, we're learning through opposites, we're learning by falling into holes, learning by climbing out of holes. We're learning by going through events that may seem to be horrible, and we're learning through events that seem to be beneficent.
I would say absolutely, because every experience, if you're a good student, every experience is a gift bearer of lessons. I mean,
yeah.
I always love to refer to Mary Oliver, the poet Mary Oliver, who said
Right.
years ago, someone I loved very deeply gave me a box of darkness. It took me years to realize that this too was a gift. I lost somebody. That's not correct for me to say I lost somebody. Excuse me. I redact that. Somebody who I loved beyond expression passed on to the next. And after a certain amount of processing, which I had to allow myself to do, I had to be gentle about that. There was grief, there was agony, there was suffering because of how I needed to process my way through what happened. But I realized that having been chosen to be loved by this person was an inexplicable, ineffable gift. And that this person blessed me with their very life and blessed me with their death. Full spectrum.
Yeah.
And I can't package that and give that to anybody. You must experience things. You must have direct personal experience. And that's why we're subjective. That's why we're individuated, so that we can have at least the perception and concept of having a direct personal experience. And no two people can share an experience. We can share an event, but we cannot share an experience. That is yours. That belongs to you. And yeah, I agree with you. Everything, falling into the hole, crawling back out of the hole, learning to avoid the hole, backing into another one. These are all experiences that teach us. And as my my brother Bob said, I've discussed with him for hundreds of thousands of hours over the many years that we've known each other. Everything that we're here for is ultimately about learning and mastering the becoming or returning to divine love, perfect love, pure love. We're here for that. And everything we're doing is bent towards it for that sake, whether it be learning the painful, unpleasant experience of being denied it, or what happens when you deny it to others. What happens with denial of love, what happens with unbridled, freely outflowing love. What experience are you having with each aspect? And all of it is wisdom.
Yeah.
You need to know the rain to know the sunshine. You need to know the freezing to know the hot. I mean, so I agree.
Yeah.
And it's good to ask, what is the lesson? What am I learning?
And you can take it to its extremes. So you talked about, some lifetimes for some people can be extremely brutal.
Sure.
And then you wonder, it's like, what am I doing? Why would I choose this kind of a life? Or you look at the world around us, what's going on in all these weird, crazy wars around the planet. Why would someone choose to do this? Why would someone initiate something that's absolutely insane? Why do economies run on such, weird concepts? All right, so this is something that we're choosing as a collective soul for what? I mean, there's obviously a reason we've chosen this, and maybe there's a learning in this. And we may not know what that learning is until we are past it and out the other side. Maybe this is about breaking something down in order to break through some resistance and fear, break through some um, self patterns of ignorance. And so, okay, so we create this, and then gradually we learn from it. There's a beautiful teaching story which I like, and maybe I can share this.
Sure.
Um, so it's called the autobiography in 5 chapters. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No.
Um, all right, so chapter 1 is an autobiography, so it's all about me. I'm walking down the road. Could be any road in India with potholes everywhere. And so you see a hole in the middle of the road and you step in it and you fall in. And immediately it's like you're blaming everything under the sun. You're blaming the road contractors, you're blaming doesn't matter what. But it's always, something that made you fall in. You don't take responsibility, you're filled with rage, you're taken over by your emotions, your mind is stuck in, these patterns of judgment and blame and so on. All right, and it takes you, you dig yourself deeper and deeper down the hole, and it takes you forever to eventually even begin to think about coming out. All right, so that's chapter 1. Chapter 2, you're walking on the same road, there's the same hole, and again, you don't see it, you fall in. But this time it's, rather than blaming everyone else around you, you start blaming, it's still blame, but you point it towards yourself. It's like, I'm such an ignorant oaf. I'm just so clumsy. I'm so stupid. Why didn't I see that? I've done this a million times. Why do I keep repeating these patterns? Why do I never learn? So it's like it becomes shame, it becomes guilt,
Right.
it becomes lack of trust in myself, and so on. It's still, it's not blaming anyone else or outside of you anymore, but it's still bad enough. You're taking out the whip and flagellating yourself with that. And it still takes you a long time to climb out. So the third chapter, you're walking on the same road, same hole, and this time you actually see the hole, but it's a habit, and you fall in. You've done this before, you're doing it again, and you're sitting at the bottom of that hole. It's like, okay, I fell in, I take responsibility. And because I have done this before, because I'm taking responsibility, I choose to climb out. It doesn't have to take forever. I'm doing this, I'm choosing. I'm changing the patterns that have kept me in either blame or shame. Chapter 4, walking on the same road, I see the hole and I walk around it. So I'm learning from all. I don't need to create the same situations in order to grow through the same experiences. I've learned my lesson. And this chapter 5, and this is the most interesting one, I take a different road, which means basically that I don't have to put myself in harm's way anymore. I have a different resonance, a vibrational resonance that I respond with to the universe, and the universe treats me accordingly. So rather than put me into roads with potholes everywhere, I'll be on a freeway that I can just travel freely, choose where I wish to go, and do it easily and joyfully. So this, I think this is the
Wonderful.
journey. And that's the journey from unconsciousness to consciousness. It's a journey from um, being caught up and controlled and ruled by our emotions, by our um, chaotic mind, and taking control, mastering who I am in terms of mastering my heart, mastering my mind, mastering the soul. Then, therefore, I become a vehicle for life. I'm not opposing life
Yeah.
anymore.
I I kind of saw like a bullet point to name each chapter as you described it. The first one is I would say external judgment. You know, blame others, victim. You're condemning others, and
Mm,
then the second one is condemning self, judging yourself. The
yeah.
third one is I struggle. This is a realization of honesty. You know,
Mm,
here we go again. I know better than this, but there's still some remnant of my continuing to do it.
yeah.
But I'm climbing out. Um, and in chapter 4 is the horizon of mastery. You're beginning to see that you have had a complete choice all along, and
Mm,
that choice is going to expand into how huge it actually is. And that's chapter 5 when you realize I don't even resonate with being on that road anymore.
right. My
I've
path is
I've
different.
chosen a different um I don't want to say what's the word I want a different level of
Mm,
functioning
mm,
for lack of better words.
yeah.
Now I don't even do that road anymore.
And the universe responds appropriately in each of those chapters. And the moment you recognize that here I am, I'm in chapter 1, already you're in chapter 2 or 3. The moment you recognize I'm in chapter 3 with all the struggle, I'm already in a realm of choice. The moment I recognize that, I can choose a different path, the universe gives you a whole different path. And that's when the personal self and the universal self start coming together as one. There's no struggle anymore. It's not. It's like I think it was Saint Augustine or somebody who said, "Let my will become, or let thy will become my will, so that my will can become thy will," or something like that. It's like there's no separation, there's no difference. I am joyfully celebrating my path because it's a path of destiny. And that destiny comes from soul. So the word destiny for me is associated with soul.
Yeah, got it. You know, you remind me one of my um subscribers, his name is Jan. Hello Jan, I know you're watching. Namaste, brother. Um, he mentioned today about how in his own path he is ascending, he is making progress that he can observe, and it's fantastic. But his buddy beside him, he suffers in himself for his buddy's sake, in the sense of, gosh, I wish I could just tap you and lift you up to where I've just gotten in my own
Mm, mm,
evolution, so to speak. But I said to him, well, in so many words, we are all on our own point on the path. We entered from another place. We're moving at a different pace. We're
yeah,
heading on a slightly different route. And you can't really just boom give that to somebody. Each person, as the Buddha said, strive for your own salvation. No one else can do it for you, and no one else may. I love that point.
yeah,
You have to do it. The self-realization must occur within self.
yeah. Well, it's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Because no, you cannot live anyone else's path. No one else can live your path. But and that's where the pain comes in. I wish I could help you um, to prevent some of the misdirections that I've taken in my journey. I've learned enough from my past that I wish you the ability to be able to avoid those pitfalls.
It's
But
like a
no,
father and a son, or a
yeah,
mother and a daughter. You
yeah,
wish that they don't have to do anything, make any errors that you made. And yet we each must walk our own path and
mm,
experience our own chosen events and experiences, etc.
mm,
And in that sense, we're we're really not behind. We're really not late or off schedule, and we're really not off path. There's no off path if
mm,
you're aware of if you see everything in life as path, you realize that there is no off path.
mm,
You may just tap out for a while, but there's no off path. And um, like ripening fruit, you have two fruit
mm,
pieces of fruit on a tree. One cannot say to the other, come on, hurry up, you're late, get with it. It
mm,
ripens. That fruit ripens when that fruit is due to be ripe.
mm.
And I
True.
think that that's all okay. But it's also understandable from from a human standpoint to yearn for someone else to attain, or I should say to realize uh, the highest possible level, especially if
Yeah,
you see that you are doing the same. You
yeah. Well, interesting, the Aramaic uh, original version of the Lord's Prayer.
mm,
Um, in English we understand that as our Father in heaven and sarada. And then what's it about? Um, Lead me not into temptation, so that um, I can't remember the exact words
lead
for it, but
lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
yeah,
This is,
and
I
that
think we know
evil,
this prayer is not well translated.
right? And that evil, how it originally comes um, through. Evil and good is a dualistic
Mhm.
term or a perception, but it's more like what you're describing. Evil and good are like ripe fruit or unripe fruit. It's not good and bad, it's just a stage.
Oh, I had
Um,
never thought of that. I will digest that one.
mm,
That one will take a little
yeah.
time for me to
I have
process,
a
because that's
beautiful
pretty fun.
translation by what's it, Neil Donald Klutz or Neil Douglas Klutz, no, not Klutz, Klutz, or Sadi as his Sufi name is, where I could find it. Maybe at the end of this I'll look for it.
Yeah, include it
It's
if you can. I'm always
so
open.
beautiful. Yeah.
I'm, I learned that prayer. I have a Roman Catholic upbringing, and
Mm,
that prayer, is part of it. But the more I looked at it, I will, well, I don't want to say I will admit, that's not the right energy. I will share with you that there are certain prayers that I was taught that I can't say anymore.
mm, mm,
And I'm not protesting, and I'm not being I don't do that. But I'm just saying, for me to speak from soul that statement, which I memorized in a rote form in a prayer that was constructed to be, recited. That's not true to
mm,
my
mm,
experience. That's not true to my being. So I can't say that anymore. But my prayer has evolved, and if I do pray the Lord's Prayer, I do pray it in Aramaic, which is
mm,
the best, the
mm,
what should I say, the most likely to be accurate and closest to what is believed to have been the context and content of the words that Christ uttered. That's the
mm,
closest that I've been able to come so far as recitation of a prayer.
mm,
But what I was getting at is, when I got to the end, and lead us not into temptation, I stopped saying it. I said, and let us not be tempted, and deliver us from evil. In other words, if there is evil projected at us, shield us from it, something to that effect.
mm,
But it's hard to say the rote recitations that you've been taught almost mindlessly, like, to
mm,
parrot them. And then when your awakening reaches a certain point, you're like, well, wait a minute.
mm.
I That's not in integrity for me to actually say that. So,
Right. Yeah. All right. So here's a translation. I found this.
oh, wonderful.
So I mean, there's many different translations. This is one by John Mark Hammer. And the Aramaic goes like this: Abun the Bashamaya, Nit 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 Netkadashamak, Tite Malkuta, Neviet Savyana, Aikana the Bashmaya of Baraa, Haulan Lakma the Sunkanan Yaumana, Washwaklan, Haubene, Dakhwanan, Shwakan El Hayabim, and so on. I mean, I'm not getting it exactly. I'm reading the English transliteration. But the translation goes like this: Mother, Father of the cosmos. So it's not our Father in heaven, it's Mother, Father of the cosmos, shimmering light of all. Focus your light within us as we breathe your holy breath. So you become the breath of God. You are the breath of God. In other words, as the wind moves through you, you reflect that through your breath. Enter the sanctuary of our hearts, uniting within us the sacred rays of your power and beauty. Let your heart's desire unite heaven and earth through our sacred union. So now it's coming, what does a sacred union mean? Whether it's Shiva and Shakti or, human divine, masculine, feminine. It's the sacred union of recognition
together.
of who we are
Yeah.
on earth as in heaven. So earth isn't just this physical plane, and heaven being the non-physical plane. It all interpenetrates each other. Heaven on earth is like this physical earth, like chapter 5. When you're in chapter 5, you're living in heaven on earth rather than hell on earth. They're
The
not.
kingdom of God is within you, as the Christ said, and as the
There you
Egyptian
go.
teachings said thousands of years before that. It's
Right.
within you. You activate it. You've already got it.
Yeah.
Activate it.
Right. And then the next line: forgive our secret fears as we freely choose to forgive the secret fears of others. So again,
That's very
here
gentle.
we are completely transcending this idea of sin and good and evil, and um, it's more like we all have our secret fears, and these fears are sometimes so secret that we refuse to share them even with ourselves. But as we share our fears with each other, we're also open to the gift that the fears are taking us beyond. So it's like, all right, so I'm afraid of dying. So what's the gift there? I'm afraid of being made a fool of. I'm afraid of not having enough. We all have the same
On and
fears,
on, whatever they
on
are.
and on and on. But once we recognize, yeah, my fears are not different from anyone else. And as I forgive my secret fears, I could even say, as I recognize my secret fears, then I can choose to forgive the secret fears of others based on recognition of that. So the outer behavior may be repulsive, but recognizing that that behavior stems from fear. And because I have the same fears, I can then forgive the other because I know that they're responding to the same secret fear.
Well,
So
as they
why
say,
judgment?
understanding replaces forgiveness in the mind of the master.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
When you realize and understand,
Right.
it transcends forgiveness. Any concept of the need for being forgiven in
Yeah.
the sense of being pardoned or anything like that. Yeah.
The need for forgiveness comes from the idea of separation. Why do why bother? I know who I am. I don't need to be forgiven because I know who I am and I'm infinite consciousness.
Yeah.
The same with the other person. I don't need to forgive them
Yeah.
because they're infinite consciousness. But to recognize that, until you recognize that, then there's always forgiveness. When you recognize that, there's no forgiveness. Even that concept of forgiveness fades.
Yep. Even the thought of there was a need for it. And I mentioned in our first conversation the way of mastery, which is channeling Yeshua. And there's I think it's book 1, episode 3 on forgiveness. And this is my latest wow moment with forgiveness, because this topic of forgiveness never ends and it's unfolding. The message was essentially I release you. I forgive you actually means I release you from my projections upon you.
There we go.
And I had never thought of that. I even did 2 episodes here on Brother Owl's Garden about forgiveness, and that had not reached me yet. I tell you, this lotus of understanding when it comes to forgiveness, it's like fractals. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. And the next line, so let's go to the next line
Yep.
in this Aramaic prayer. Exactly what you're saying. Let us not enter forgetfulness, tempted by false appearances. For from your astonishing fire comes the eternal song which sanctifies all, renewed eternally in our lives and throughout all creation. We seal these words in our hearts, committed in trust and faith. I mean, so much, so different from the way we normally interpret this prayer. I mean, there's so many nuances and so much wisdom and breadth here.
Yeah. Kiara, I don't want to push anybody's buttons, and everyone is free to feel and perceive and interpret things as they wish. But I think it's very safe to say there is no way that common English translation of the Lord's Prayer is accurately portraying and reflecting the essence and nuance and content of what Yeshua said. There's no way.
Right.
And you have to know that. So, okay, let's move beyond it. And also, I would love to include the link to this wondrous translation that you've just recited and shared. If there's a link to it, I will put it in the description for everybody. That's number 1. Number 2, Dale Allen Hoffman, an acquaintance of mine, also he does a lot of what's called toning, and he's very, very huge into the Aramaic recitation of the Lord's Prayer. He also has an absolutely breathtaking interpretation, which is right alongside the one that you've just shared with us, Kiara. And the third point is, if you are interested in learning how to recite the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, which is the language that Yeshua actually spoke, if you go down to one of the first 5 or 6 videos on my channel, I have the whole thing there, slowly recited, written out, easy to see if you're interested in learning it. And I tell you, there is some power when you do have that, when it is time to recite a prayer meaningfully from your heart, when that time does come, I tell you, this is powerful. And it just blows away anything that you'd be able to feel resonating with that English version, which we just know is not an accurate enough representation.
No, there's a vibrational quality. It's just like mantras
Exactly. That's what I'm
every
exactly it.
tradition.
Yeah. You will feel it.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just go through the whole Aramaic prayer in Aramaic. So abun, and as I say this, feel it as a mantra, as a vibrational quality that then starts to, do what it does within your system. Abun the Bashmaya, net kadash mak, tite malkuta, nevie seviana aikana the Bashmaya afbara'a. Havlan nachma the sunkanan yaumana. Washwaklan, Haubana, Aikana, Dafhanan, Shokhan al Hayaben, Ula Takhlan, En Nesuna, Ela Pausan, Min Bisha, Metul Dilaki Malkuta, Ohaila Oteshbuta, Lailam, Amin, Amen. So, it's been a long time since I've actually, learned and pronounced that well, but it gives you a sense of the feeling of it.
Absolutely. And Kiara, it took me 500 recitations to learn it. It is not easy, but it will come. And what I advise people, I'm not trying to promote my channel and everything, but please do look at the video I made in small bites of very, I'm a pronunciation stickler. I'm really,
Yeah.
names and words. And it is an excellent place to start, among others you may find. And you will slowly start to integrate it and make it your own. And I've told you 500 times before I got it, but you will get it. And what I did is I made a laminated card with, and I will send this to anybody who contacts me. I'll gladly send it to you. I've already got it written out. I've transcribed it phonetically. Of course, Aramaic written, I can't read it. You can't read it. So it's meaningless. So what I did is I transcribed each word phonetically to, and I think Latin. Just think Latin when you're writing with letters, so that you can gradually ingest it and integrate it and make it your own. And I tell you, as Kiara attested as well, when it starts praying through you, you've really got it. You're going to feel it. It is powerful. It is a mantra. It is a kalam. It is a chant. It's
And we
beautiful.
must remember also where its origins came from. We think about Jesus in most Christian traditions as if he suddenly appeared, a perfected being. There's no record of his life during 18 years of his journey.
Right.
And then he showed up in Palestine and started his ministry there. There's a lot of research and a lot of scriptures from the East, from the Buddhist tradition, Mahayana, from the Hindu tradition, Vedanta, from the Jain tradition, from the Persian Farsi tradition, from the Chinese and Japanese traditions, about his journeys all through India, China, Japan, Persia, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Tibet, and learning intensely and interacting with the teachers of that time,
Possibly
the
even
teachings of
England,
those
they say.
times. England, sure, and France, and so it's like he was a product of his age, but much more than we give him credit for.
Yeah.
Because he was able to integrate all these different teachings in a way that few people before him had been able to do, and not just the teachings, but also the the experience of divinity. So that's why you could say, "I and the Father are one," or "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Not because it's like some concept, but because it comes from that experience of primordial consciousness. Tattvamasi.
Yeah.
I am that. The what people refer to as enlightenment in many traditions. It's the recognition that the human self and the divine self are not separated from each other. I am a vehicle, I'm the ocean moving through this drop. So all of this is something that he was trying to teach his disciples in a very dualistic culture in the Hebrew tradition, which didn't have a place for this. And therefore he got into trouble with the priests and ended up being, crucified and discredited. So, but that's what we are going back to. It's not
Depending
just
on the storyteller you're listening to. I mean, I know there's an awful lot of recommending going on here in this conversation, but I'm going to recommend to my viewers to please go to Kiara's channel on YouTube, and there is a quite a deep dive on examining all of these claims that Jesus the Christ, we know, lived for 33 years. More than half of them are not even mentioned in the Christian canon, in the Bible texts. So where are those other 18 years? What happened? Of course, I personally, Kiara, I will conclude with, we cannot prove or absolutely know a whole lot of those things, but they are all fascinating, and all of them are possible, and some of them are probable. I tend to believe that he did go to the two ancient Buddhist temples in India, the one in Lhasa, where the scroll with Isa, the greatest of the son of men, is still there. I tend to say that's probably correct. And, but I encourage everybody to definitely check out Kiara's channel and look for the episode with Ingmar. What is the title of that? Yeshua.
Jesus, Isa in Kashmir.
Okay, and that was a recent video, and it is actually because of a suggestion in my newsfeed when that video popped up. That's how I reached out to Kiara, and now we're friends, and he's so wonderfully sharing on my channel and posting these on his as well. So I say namaste to all of your viewers as well.
Well, there's a book I've just finished writing it called Isa, which is the name for Jesus in India, Son of the Sun, which was actually a Persian title, Son of the Sun. So it's like sons and daughters of the infinite sun. And so that was a title given to Isa based on the recognition of his quality as an enlightened being. And it's not unique to one person. It's like, it's a title. So it's offered to whoever is able to make that alignment. And I think that's what his teachings were. And so this book, I'm writing it as a novel, as a historical novel, and but also incorporating all these different stories and traditions from different histories and scriptures from all over the world. So it's fascinating. And this has taken me 10 years to study and research and pull together and write. So,
well, I know a book I have to get. Surely you will send me the link that I can offer to our viewers. The best source that you prefer for them to obtain. How many books have you written now? Is it, Kiara, how many?
I don't remember. I think it's something like 8 to 10.
Yeah, a bunch.
Yeah.
And are they directly available on your website? Is that where you would prefer?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. How about Book
they're
Depository?
on Amazon. I know they're
like
on
Book
Amazon.
Depository. Yeah.
So check that out if it's there.
Yeah.
My problem is like I love writing, but I don't have the patience to deal with publishing and everything else. So it's like, once it's, then I just want someone else to take it over and do what they want to do with it.
Right.
And so unfortunately, most of these kind of got stuck along the way. So some of them are self-published. They're on Amazon. If any of you watching this would like to take on the task of publishing, they're all available. I haven't sold publishing rights to anybody. So,
okay. If anybody out there resonates with that, contact Kiara directly.
If someone really wants, I could send you a PDF file also.
Okay.
By email or something.
Okay. Okay.
And especially
so anyone that would like to receive that, please contact Kiara Windrider directly from his website. What is that website again, Kiara?
KiaraWindrider.net.
There you go. .net. Okay. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I definitely wanted to welcome you back again today, and to make sure that people get to know you a little bit better on my end of the two channels, and to know that you are a very worth reading author of, let's just call it a bunch of books. Because I have only discovered you personally myself, I haven't read them yet, but you know that I'm going to. And I want to introduce people to your website and to your YouTube channel as well. And I consider you to be, of course, a very knowledgeable and accomplished adept at the spiritual path in general. But also, I increasingly am beginning to consider you a brother. And I just love who you are and what you resonate. And I know that I speak for many watching in saying that to you, Kiara. So I thank you and I honor you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, so let's come back full circle to the question we started off with. So we started off about the future. What is the future? Is there one? Is there multiple? Is there different timelines? Are there different pathways? Is it just a concept, or is it real in itself? Is it different on different dimensional planes? And I think we get too uh, caught up in an idea of the future. And I think if we can become present, fully present, which means last time we talked about being fully embodied.
Right.
If we are embodied, that creates a sense of presence, which is, the union with divine presence. Then the future moves in its own way towards its highest potential, inexorably. It has its own rhythm, it has its own power, and it cannot be stopped. And that at that point, it's like an ocean, a tide that's coming up, and inevitably is going to come to shore and um, run through the sands and do what it needs to do. I mean, it's not your um, task anymore. It's not your future. It's not your destiny. At that point, it just becomes destiny, because the separation between what's you and not you, what's
Right.
inside, what's outside, what's heaven, what's earth, what's God, what's human, what's matter, what's spirit, all that just vanishes. You
Yeah.
just become the ocean. You are a carrier of this
Yeah. Yeah.
mighty ocean
Yep.
coming through you and coming through this earth and coming through everything that you encounter and every heart that you touch. It's inevitable, and that's the future I feel like we're moving towards, where we truly have a choice, because that's the future that comes from the soul. It's the future we create intentionally with choice. I mean, that's what choice is, not programs anymore, but choice.
Well, Kiara, they say that an infant baby, in its early stages, is that it is that it as the new soul arrives into this manifest world, it's coming from a completely serene and connected, well, not even beyond connected. It doesn't see itself as a self, and all others are other, and that is it. It's like that example I told you when I had that soul vision of being in the void, but I was the void. There was no boundary between me and void. There was just void. It wasn't like there was some part of me behind my perception that existed outside of it or anything like that. And a newborn baby is born into that state of being, or is in that state of being when born, and until, as you said, the conditioning, the programming hits.
Yeah.
And boy, is that huge. And let me tell you, I mean, as you already know, but wow, does that shape you and impact you like programs running in the tray of your computer that you have forgotten about forever, but they're all running. And religious programming and societal programming, and all of it is just so hugely impacting our being, and it starts to shut this part down, throw that part away over there, don't you dare open up that over there. Oh, you're a man, don't be intuitive, that's for women. Oh, all these messaging, and like I said before in the previous conversation, there is an actively engaged war for our consciousness and our energy. But aside from all that dramatic stuff, a lot of it is very well intended, very well, and good intentions behind all of it. But wham!
Yeah.
And so we reach a point in our awakening process, which is ever unfolding, that we realize all that is not me, all that is not mine, and all that doesn't serve my awakening, I release. meaning I release myself from as well, equally.
Very
That's
good.
why I became an FTT practitioner. That's what I do with that. I help people go directly to those things, identify them, untangle them, and release them and reprogram in many cases with the space where they used to be, so to speak, or the energy they used to consume.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is transfigurative, it's transformative.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, everything that you say resonates.
And the gift of these times is that we all have access to so much that we didn't before.
Right.
You know, whether it's spiritual traditions, psychological traditions, all the self-help techniques, everything that's available to people. Even one generation ago or two generations ago, we didn't have access to this. People are still running their programs. Now we have the ability to remove or release programs and then choose something different. And
Yeah.
the more people that can do this, the easier it becomes for everybody else. And that's I think the difference between this age, that we are really waking up so quickly now. We are supporting each other in ways that we don't even acknowledge or recognize
Yeah.
that we are,
And we
because
are
it's all.
resonating and impacting those, like I mentioned about Jan before.
Hmm,
Just the fact that he is walking his path and he is on his ascension, just that, being
hmm,
around his buddy who he's concerned about, etc.,
yeah,
he's
yeah,
helping him. He's
yeah.
helping him. Believe me, you're resonating that frequency out. Or as the Marianne Williamson quote, you know, I don't like to say you give permission, but that's the line. You give permission for others to awaken as well. So,
Hmm,
you know, Ramana Maharshi, there's no greater use of your life than your own self awakening and
hmm,
returning to self, capital S always, by the way. Or Ram Dass, best thing I can do for you is work on me. Best thing you can do for me is work on you.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
it. We can't do it for the other person. We can't do
yeah.
it to the other person, but you tend your own garden. As I said to Jan, even the Bodhisattva tends their own garden first.
Hmm. Yeah, and you know, for a long time, I felt like I was carrying this enormous weight on my shoulders, and it was this burden of feeling like I had to save the world. You know, I mean, it's such a pretentious thing to even say. Uh,
You meant
but the
well, it's where you were
idea,
at.
what's that?
I said you meant well, and it's where you were at. And I'm wondering
Yeah,
if you're gonna
yeah.
credit Rumi or if I'm gonna credit Rumi with this quote.
Go ahead.
When I was young, I was clever, and I tried to change the world. Now I'm older and wiser, and I change myself.
Mm,
I'm paraphrasing, but you know, when I was younger, I was idealistic, outwardly projecting. I will help the whole world. I will
yeah,
change this world. I'm an activist. And then
right.
as he became more seasoned and awakened and mature in his spiritual walk, oh, I tend my own garden.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
is the gift to the world. That is my
And that
share.
is because you're not separate from the world. I mean, that's an acknowledgement that goes very deep, and recognizing that I'm not separate.
Yeah,
What I do for myself, I'm equally doing for people around me. You know, that's the idea of the
right.
family constellation, and then the planetary constellation and the cosmic constellation. Every, you know, that's the idea of Spanda in Kashmir Shaivism, the doctrine of vibration. It's like everything is basically magnetically imprinted on patterns of light. And so one
Hmm.
movement here affects everything everywhere else.
Well, that's a future conversation for us, Kiara, because I don't know too much about that, and I certainly would like to know more and share it with our viewers. That's another topic for the future.
Yeah, sounds good.
And speaking of future, I want to share brother Bob, dear friend of mine for nearly 30 years. He told me once that he had sometimes he calls it a hit or a download, a soul vision, whatever you want to call it, where
Hmm.
suddenly he was shown or could see that regarding future, everything is indeed a choice, an option, a potentiality. And when he had this vision, all of these options appeared in the form of like green jello triangles. They were kind of squishy, jello-y green triangles. And he could see in his mind's eye, oh, I just, choose this one or choose this. And it would open up an entire path of, you've chosen this, here is where that will lead. So that's one understanding of future. And the other thing I would like to offer before we close, this one is way out there. If anybody out there is an Art Bell fan, search Art Bell on YouTube. He's all over the place. There was one episode that I was listening to half asleep, which is how I listen to Art Bell. And there was a guy on there. The topic was time travel, which was a frequent topic for Art Bell. And this particular, I think he was a physicist, he said, there isn't a future. Future is just potential. Could be. It's not and is. So that even in the quantum physics experiments where they have been able to actually do some verifiable level of technically time travel, he said humans have, okay, with the technology that they developed, people have been already going back to the past for decades, possibly who knows how long before that. But he's verifying it. It's unbelievable, the testimony that he gave. But he said, we can't go to the future though. And part of the understanding of that is the most they've been able to do is, I'm just going to put it into layman's terms, jump a millisecond ahead of the now, just like like that. They can't go into the year 3019, something like that. It isn't there. Now, I know that's going to rattle cages, and I don't claim to understand it, but I'm sharing it because in our discussion, which has often included the future today, that's mind-boggling. That there isn't a future to travel to if time travel is possible or will someday be possible. But the past can be visited or revisited. And I don't understand how, if there is only now, or as I call it, the is, because even now is a timestamp word. If there is the now, the is, and the past and the future are all part of that, those are just memories and thinking about future, wondering about future. I don't know how that can all fit together. But coupling that with my friend Bob's vision of future being essentially chosen potentialities, and this physicist claiming that, well, we've gone into the past countless times. We even have pictures of us there. Unbelievable stuff. But we can't go into the future. It isn't there. Or he was speculating that it actually isn't there, which is the reason. That's what I wanted to share.
Interesting. Well, that could certainly be another topic of conversation.
It's a super deep dive, but certainly mind-blowing stuff to contemplate. Well, Kiara, let's leave it there for today. And I hope to have more and more wonderful conversations with you. I love that you share these on your channel as well. And I just look forward to whatever spirit offers that flows and vibes. And you're always welcome here at Brother Owl's Garden. And it's a great honor to have you here. And I respect you very much, brother.
Thank you, Brian. And I would also invite listeners and watchers, because I think for these kinds of conversations, it always helps to have specific queries. So if you have any questions or anything that you're struggling with, put it out in the chat box or below the video, and maybe that could be the next theme. So it's like, I don't like coming in with with a planned idea. It's like it's like responding to what's there in the world around. So please, let's make this interactive.
Yeah, I do encourage our viewers to comment below whether this is being viewed by you on Kiara's channel or Brother Owl's Garden, either way. And if you you may lead to a wonderful new topic that we'll make an episode about specifically by your request. So thank you.
And also mention how this affects you. It's like what's going on with you in response to some of these thoughts and ideas. And, it's like, yeah, we are here in this together.
Yeah. As I mentioned, Kiara, right away when I posted our first video together where we talked about embodying your full divinity, got immediately two, there could be more later, very wonderful, very strong affirmation feedback comments from a couple of my viewers on there, and kind of like, well, you did it again. This is a wonderful soul you've brought on here. I'm totally swimming around in this topic lately, and now I'm resonating so much with what you said about this, that, the other. So it's always wonderful. And okay, we'll leave it there for today, but I just remind everybody to be the highest being that you actually are, and to be the divinity that you've arisen from, because you are. And yes, Kiara, humanity is awakening en masse, collectively. We are ascending. The old matrix is crumbling, and let it go, I say. And anything that is not you is not yours and is not serving your ascension. Bye-bye. Let it go. You have only bliss ahead of you. Thank you, Brother Kiara.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you all.